Welcome back, Weavers, to the channel Doge, where today I'm covering Season 12 of Overwatch, and I'm going to try and make this intro pretty speedy, because I've really struggled to get through the beginning to start. Okay, so here's the real, quick version, rapid fire, what's even happening. Juno is now officially out. The playtest, obviously, was where she was before, so she was only available for a single weekend. Now she's actually permanently part of the game. New game mode has been added, Clash. New map has been added, Throne of Anubis. Clash also has a second map called Hanaoka that's just not listed as a new map, because we got to play it in a playtest back in Season 10, so we technically seen it before, but if you went around for that playtest, we technically have two new maps. So yeah. New Hero Mastery courses, don't really care about that. And of course, the Avoid as Teammate system has been massively overhauled and improved. You can now have up to 15 Avoid slots, where 3 of them are permanent Avoid slots, which is a great change. I'm absolutely glad to see that. Also, spawn systems got changed a bit. They improved the way they did this a while ago. They changed how respawning works in quick play and in non-competitive modes to make it so that people would all respawn at the same time more often, rather than people getting staggered. And they've done some further improvements to that. I'm trying to remember. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not going into the weeds on this. I'm trying to remember if they said they were going to put like a version of this in competitive, because initially they didn't put this into competitive just in case it did mess with the competitive integrity of the game. But I swear I remember them mentioning that they now put some respawn mechanics into competitive. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Rank reset, that's not a surprise really, and hero updates. We will address the actual comments and the substance, but I guess here's the rapid fire. D.Va Defense Matrix, duration reduced from 3.5 to 3 seconds, thumbs up. Orisa Energy Javelin, impact damage increased from 60 to 80, okay. Particle Cannon, secondary fire, minimum damage increased and maximum damage increased, so right clicks do more damage. Echo's health reduced to 225, Hanzo's health reduced to 225. They're doing this so Hanzo has more people he can one-shot, and so that more mobile heroes are easier to kill. Junkrat got some changes to make his gun, quote-unquote, work more like classic Overwatch, so that his ricochets are more powerful because they keep more velocity on a bounce, but as a trade-off, they now lose their projectile size quite massively after 2 bounces, so that you're less likely to get bullshit kills off of a shot you didn't even aim at someone, and it bounces off 5 walls and then eventually hits them by pure luck. So, aimed skill shots are buffed, but random bullshit spam in a direction is nerfed. Is essentially the substance of that. Soujorn got some crazy buffs we're going to have to address later. Primary fire has less spread, critical hits now grant double energy, and energy degeneration is more than halved in speed. Sombra has gone to 225 at health, but they've got a buff to their virus damage and a pretty substantial buff to their movement in stealth, so they can move even faster. Torb got 25 extra armor. Illari lost some ammo, but got some quality of life changes to her ult and her heal beam, even though it isn't listed here. The developer comments say this also applies to the heal beam, which is essentially makes it so that you're less likely to bonk off of geometry that you didn't actually touch. Though before there was a weird thing where you could shoot through a gap, but if the gap was small enough, the gap just wouldn't exist for the beam or the captive sun, and so it would explode as if it hit the surface, even though you shot it through a gap, if it was a small enough gap. So yeah. Juno, her health went down to 225, her gun got massively nuked in terms of fire rate, her DPS and heal output really did get screwed here, but she got her damage and healing increased from, her damage increased on pulsar torpedoes, her healing was increased, but they also reduced the heal over time, so in total it's the same amount of healing. Hyper Ring got some more range, the cooldown went down from 16 to 14 seconds, and her ultimate now moves forward faster, which is both a buff and a nerf, probably a little bit more of a nerf than a buff, but at least it's more fun that way. Kiriko, this change is hilarious. She went down to 225 HP, and she completely lost her headshot multiplier. It's now just the normal double headshot multiplier. However, she has had her kunai damage go up, although the fire rate of the kunais has gone back to what it was on launch of 0.55 seconds instead of 0.5 with the previous iteration. Lifeweaver got a sort of extremely small rework, where he now gets healing charge passively while not using his healing blossom for free, and his petal platform, now the timer before it goes away only ticks down while it's actually up in the air, and if no one stands on it for 2 seconds, it goes back down on its own, which is a huge change actually. As a trade-off, the health went from 400 to 300, and Rejuvenating Dash went from 60 self-heal to 45. Mercy went down to 225 HP, but got a buff to her healing from 55 to 60 health per second, and a buff to her damage buff from 25% to 30% to compensate. Moira went to 225, but got Biotic Grasp buffed in terms of DPS to compensate. And Lucio went to 225, but got a fucking enormous damage buff to his primary fire to compensate, so this is actually probably a net buff. As well as a really long list, I'm not going to bother to go through entirely, of quality of life changes to Juno to make playing her feel a little bit better. Some of these are kind of buffs, but most of this is just sort of visuals and okay, it just makes more sense that she plays this way. So yeah. With that said, how do I not get into the weeds? Okay, one of the first things that made me get into the weeds straight away is seeing the new game mode Clash. So I want to make something clear. I do not think that Clash is a bad game mode. In fact, I think that if I had to rank a game modes, Clash probably ends up on the top half. I think it's pretty good. I'm not losing my mind over it, but, I prefer it to a lot of other game modes in this game. That being said, I'm going to make a statement which I don't know if it's a hot take or not, because I feel like it probably shouldn't be a very hot take, but I just don't hear anyone talking about this. Is it just me, or does no one care about new game modes? Because, that's certainly me at least. Okay, how do I put this? I understand that new game modes do change certain aspects about the game, but if we're talking a big picture perspective, does adding a new mode to the game really change the way we play Overwatch, when every single mode is just a new variation of, here is a point, attack it to capture it, there's payload, where the point moves, you know, and you've got an attacking and defending team. There's push, which is kind of just two-way payload. There's hybrid, which is payload, except you have to capture a point first before the payload appears. There's normal payload, obviously, where there's no point. There's 2CP, which obviously eventually got removed, but that was just capture 2 points. There's flashpoint, which is capture a point and then it moves and try and get 3 points, you know. There's control, which is capture a point and it never moves and get to 100% by holding it for enough time. And is that all of them? I feel like I'm missing one. I'm not even bothering. I think I got all of them. You get the point. All of them are kind of just, here's a point, and get it. And Clash is kind of like that, you know? There's 5 points spread around the map, 1 in the center, and 2 closer to each player's spawns. And essentially, you try and get as many points as possible. If you get all 5 points captured, they start with like 2 points on 2 sides, and the middle point is uncaptured. If you manage to get all 5 points captured at any point in time, then you instantly win, but that's really difficult because the last point is practically immediately outside enemy spawn. So as a result, there's an alternate win con for if you can't ever get to each other's spawns, that being that once you've captured enough points in total, you simply get enough points to win the game. So it's either capture, I think it's like 6, 7 points in total over the course of the entire game, or capture all 5 points like at once are your win conditions for Clash. So don't get me wrong, there's differences between Clash and other game modes, but functionally, if I'm playing Flashpoint and if I'm playing Clash, there isn't that much of a difference. If I'm playing Flashpoint, I go to a point, I fight for it with the enemy team, I take the point, and then I move to the next point. If I'm playing Clash, I go to the point, I fight for it from the enemy team, I take the point, and I go to the next point. You know? It's not really very different. Now you might be saying, okay, but why are you complaining about new content? Okay. I don't mind new game modes being added if it was kind of a, well, if they weren't being added, there would be no other issues with the game. Like, you know, it's not doing anything bad for the game, it's just neutral, you know? It's just free extra stuff, who cares, you know? But it's just knowing, first of all, that they're spending dev time and resources on these new game modes, which I'm not really sure that anyone really cares about. No one ever seems to be hyped about new game modes in Overwatch, and I don't blame them, because I'm not really. Though in fairness, I'll admit, I'm a little bit biased here. I kind of think we already perfected the format with payload, I'm not gonna lie. I hate that it's such a basic opinion, but I feel like it's true. I swear, every single time I feel like I can't explain it, but I'm just not having fun with Overwatch. It's almost always because I think back and I'm like, oh right, the last like 5 games I've had have been on like Flashpoint, then Control, then Flashpoint again, then Control again, then Push, but it was on Colosseo or something. And then I get a game on Payload and immediately I'm enjoying myself again. Like, I hate to be boring, but like Payload is just the most fair and fun mode in the game. Like, we already peaked with Payload. And I'm not even saying this as a all the new stuff is shit take, because I'll give you this take, for as much as people love to demonize Push, for as much as people love to demonize Flashpoint, I'm gonna tell you this, I think Push and Flashpoint are way better than Control. I think Control, despite the fact it is a mode that's been here since day one, is actually the worst game mode in the game. And it is also, literally statistically, the game mode where you're the most likely to be fucked if you don't win the first team fight. Everyone said that about Push, that if you don't win the first team fight, you're fucked and you can't come back. But in reality, that's completely false. If anything, Push is one of the game modes with the most comeback potential. In fact, my main problem with Push, ironically, is it's got so much comeback potential. Sometimes it's kind of a bad thing. Sometimes you can dominate for 7 minutes straight, but then your team just has an aneurysm in the last minute of the match and you lose, even though you were dominating all game, just because your team drops the ball on the final team fight, and the enemy team that has been like playing with like minus 9,000 IQ the whole game suddenly wins at the final minute just because you had one bad team fight at the end and the comeback potential on Push is that strong. I quite literally think most people's like criticisms of Push are literally the opposite of reality. Like, in my experience, that's what a bad Push game feels like. When you're actually dominating all game, but then it all goes down the shitter just because someone got themselves killed way too early in the last team fight and it makes everyone else fall apart, you know? Anyway. So, if you're talking about game modes where you can't make a comeback and it feels hopeless and it's super unfun and it's super non-skill expressive, I think Control is the mode you point to for that. Control has very little use of high ground, so there's very little like strategic positioning. There is some, obviously, but there's not a lot, especially compared to other maps. The point never moves, so you don't really get much chances of, oh, well, we're not that good on that point, but we're going to be good on the next point, don't worry, guys. You know, since the point doesn't move, you don't really get to play that card. It's just kind of there the whole time, and if that point is a rough point for your team, tough fucking luck, you're stuck with it, you know? Anyway, point being, yeah, Control's a really bad game mode, despite the fact it's been here since day one. So this isn't a thing of, oh, the new game modes suck and the old game modes are the best. This is a thing of, I don't really care about having new game modes. I just want the game modes we have to be fun and to have plenty of maps to play on. And that's the other point. The game tries to give you a pretty even spread of all the game modes in the game. But you might notice that all the game modes in the game don't have an even distribution of maps. That's not really a surprise though, is it? When you look at Payload and Hybrid, there are so many maps to pick from, sometimes it can feel like it's a year before you get a game on King's Row again. Meanwhile, because Flashpoint literally only has 2 maps on the list, Saravasa and New Junk City, yeah, I can imagine you're real sick of those 2 maps, because I am too. I don't think they're necessarily bad maps, I'm just fucking sick of playing them, because they're the only 2 Flashpoint maps in the game. But because Flashpoint is one of the only 5 modes currently in the game, those 2 maps make up about a fifth of all of my games on Overwatch. On launch, Push only had 2 maps, New Queen Street and Colosseo, and although it quickly got Esperantia afterwards, it really hurt that New Queen Street and Colosseo were both unpopular maps. I think that's a lot of the reason why Push got demonized, because people hate Colosseo and New Queen Street, and they were the only maps you could play Push on. When you actually look at Push maps like Runasapi and Esperantia, I don't see as many people complaining, because those are actually well-designed maps. But even with those 4 maps, I can't help but point out, we still only have 4 push maps? That really isn't a lot. And that's for a mode that's had time to get new maps. And now, when we still have a mode with only 2 maps and a mode with only 4 maps, when some modes in this game have nearly 10 maps, we're now adding a 6th game mode to the mix. Really? And mind you, a 6th game mode that also only has 2 maps. And again, I don't expect the devs to just magically materialize more dev time out of thin air and make tons of maps for all these different game modes, but that's why I kind of against the game modes existing in the first place. I don't want all this dev time and resources to go into just making maps for the game modes that don't have enough maps. I just don't think we should have this many game modes. I'm just gonna be real with you. I think people are happy to play the game modes we already had and would just like more maps for them. Again, it's not that I dislike Clash. I think Clash is a fine game mode. It's just, again, did it really change the way I played the game in any way? No. Am I enjoying Hanaoka and Throne of Anubis right now? Yes. Am I going to be enjoying Throne of Anubis and Hanaoka in 5 months' time when they're still the only Clash maps in the game, and I'm playing them 1 in every 6 games of every single game of Overwatch I have in every single season, all the time, non-stop? No, I don't think I will like them anymore by that point. It doesn't even matter if they're good maps. I think I will just get ludicrously sick of them. And it hurts too, because a lot of the fan-favorite maps in this game are payload maps or hybrid maps, and that means we're creating a situation where the fan-favorite maps in the game are the maps that are statistically the least likely to get selected. All that being said, the new map, Throne of Anubis, as I say, I do think it's a good map. I literally only have 1 complaint with it. I've really enjoyed it so far. My only complaint is, the middle point has, like, these covers on the doorways, so if you're inside the middle point, you can't look out to see, like, you know, the outside. That's not the complaint. I think that's fine. My problem is that those sort of bits of cover by the doorways are the only cover between the entire straight line between your spawn room and the center of the map. And it's a long map. So essentially what I'm getting at is, if you are anywhere except the middle point, there is just a massive straight line with basically no cover that goes all the way from the start of the map to the center of the map. Which maybe is a bit much. In fairness, there is a statue and there is an archway that you can use as cover in the stretch, but both of them are in the middle of the stretch, and the stretch is so wide as well that it still takes a while to walk behind the statue if you're caught in the middle of the open. So that would be my main complaint with Throne of Anubis, is that one particular stretch of the map between 3rd point and 4th point that also stretches all the way over to the entrance of 5th point is a really long stretch of ground to have basically no cover in, especially considering that it's the way you have to walk to reach 4th point if you don't want to take a flank route like sneaking through the buildings. But other than that, that's literally the only complaint I have. Other than that, it feels like all the points are very well balanced. They've got a good, you know, they've got enough cover that you feel like you can exist on them without exploding, but they've got enough open angles to attack that the points don't feel impenetrable and impossible to attack. There's plenty of high ground in this map, which I'm glad to say, because I've been really worried about how little high ground there've been in some recent map designs. I really do think it's bad map design to make maps that are so flat, like Suravasa. There's lots of clever angles and flanks on this map. I don't know, I like it so far. I think it is generally one of the better maps that have been released in Overwatch 2 so far. Potentially maybe even my favourite Overwatch 2 map, like of all time so far. Maybe I would go that far, actually. So it's a good map. I've got good things to say about it. Obviously, I don't really care about Hero Mastery. The avoid list change is actually kind of huge. And spawning changes is nice. Competitive rank reset, that's okay. And hero updates. Okay, now we get into the meat of things. So, developer comment. Our recent 2.11.1 patch, the mid-season 11 patch, saw a significant gain in the interest for the role of tanks, and had a positively lasting effect on queue times for damage and support as well. There are a few additional tuning changes in this update for tanks, but this patch is largely focused on adjusting many of the more mobile heroes in the damage and support roles. Mobility is very powerful, and we would like for there to be more of a trade-off for the flexibility that it brings, especially as we add speed-boosting abilities by welcoming Juno to the game. We're moving a handful of heroes to a 225 maximum HP, and in some cases increasing potency elsewhere in their kit. Okay, let me be direct here. I have very, 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 very mixed feelings about this developer comment on the whole patch as this whole patch as a whole, and that is because looking at the changes in this patch, I actually think they've done a pretty good job. I think that ultimately this is like again, it's another one of those patches where the changes aren't bad, but they just don't address the big picture. But for what they are, they're decent changes. And I will admit, my blood ran cold and my skin went white when I read that they're like, oh, but mobility's really dangerous, and oh, we gotta nerf these nobility heroes, and it's like, oh god, what are you doing? No, the mobility heroes are like the last bastion of fun and skill expression left in your game. For the love of God, don't, like, because again, translate that into English, that means, okay, fuck Lucio, fuck Tracer, fuck Genji, you know, and it's like, no, actually, let's not do that. Let's keep the most honest and skill expressive heroes in the game, maybe some of the stronger heroes in the game, you know, they're quite difficult and they are quite skill expressive, they don't have any bullshit, they just have to be better than you at the game, and if they're doing well, that's maybe a sign of good health for the game, not bad health, so maybe don't nerf them. As a sentiment, this is terrible. Like, this actually got me terrified for this patch. But again, when I read the actual changes, they're not too bad. And I almost wonder if this might be a bit of a, we have to say one thing, even though we don't want to, we kind of have to say one thing and then do another. So, this is what I'm thinking. There's two worlds here. There's the world where they genuinely meant everything they said in this developer comment, but they just went quite soft on it, and so it wasn't actually too bad. But then there's the other world. And the other world is, you know how it says that we're, in some cases, increasing the potency elsewhere in their kit? We're going to get to it later, of course, the specifics, but in most cases, that potency buff is good enough that it's actually kind of not a bad trade. in some cases, it's basically just an outright buff to these mobility heroes, even though it kind of presents it as a nerf. So what I'm wondering is if the devs are aware of that. I'm wondering if the devs are kind of like, okay, we want to nerf mobility heroes because the stats say they're doing too good. But we also know that mobility heroes do good because they're honest and skill expressive. And we know that we're going to make experienced players miserable by nerfing mobility heroes. So what do we do about that? And I wonder if they decided, how about we make it look like we nerf mobility heroes? Which would probably appease a lot of the lower skill players. But for the more dedicated players, the mobility heroes are kind of low-key buffed if you're good at them, and if you know how to not die on them. That's what I'm wondering. And if that is true, I'll give them a hand. I think these are good changes most of all. But I just don't know if I can give them that much benefit of the doubt, and if maybe they just genuinely didn't realize that what they did here is genuinely more buffing them than nerfing them in many cases. Though again, I'm not complaining because I don't even like the premise of, mobility heroes good, nerf, nerf! It's like, no, actually, mobility heroes maybe should be good, you know? At the highest level to play at least, definitely, I would say so, you know? Maybe that's a sign of a healthy game. Anyway. Getting into the actual specific changes. This is already an interesting one. So I'm actually reading developer comments here because I will admit, this is another reason why this patch is a little bit better. The developer comments are relatively thorough and they're quite fascinating. For D.Va, they dropped this little nugget of information. The increase in defense matrix availability didn't help D.Va's overall performance that much, compared to the amount of frustration it's causing players on the opposite team, so we're reverting it to the previous duration. That is interesting, because for those of you who haven't been playing, D.Va dominated the game, she took over. I'll admit, I was a little bit off the ball. I knew that D.Va was like in the running for being a strong tank, but in my predictions for Season 11, I thought it'd be Ramattra and Zarya at the top. And I wasn't wrong. Ramattra and Zarya were in the top 3, but they got very quickly hotfixed down. Not to mention, even before the hotfix, it looked like D.Va was part of that top 3, and I didn't predict that. The main thing for me was that it was hard to say with D.Va, because I agreed that the buffs to D.Va were ludicrous and would definitely massively increase her power level, but it was hard for me to imagine whether that would make her good or not, because the reason that D.Va's being played has never been that she's a weak character in terms of pure power level. The reason is because she is the only tank in the game that truly makes no fucking sense in 5v5. And I'm not saying this as like a hardcore 6v6er, again, for those of you unininitiated, I'm unironically, like, against 6v6. Like, I don't know why I say that, more in the middle, I guess, but, like, I don't think 6v6 solves all our problems. But I will say this, while people, like, doomsay that all the time that Zarya and Roadhog would never work in 5v5, they like to ignore the fact that Zarya broke the game in Season 1, and Roadhog broke the game in Season 2. You know, they immediately became some of the best tanks in 5v5, when everyone said they'd be unplayably garbage because they're not designed for 5v5. And they quite literally were too good, if anything. Meanwhile, though, you have D.Va. And I feel like a lot of people ignore that D.Va actually is the only tank that never truly worked in 5v5 and can't work in 5v5. And I've already done this spiel a couple times, so I'll make it quick. But long story short, she is the only off-tank in the game that is also a dive tank. As a result, she doesn't initiate dives, she supports already existing dives. But because she's the only tank in the game, and yet she can't initiate a dive, the only way for D.Va to get away with initiating dives in 5v5 is either if the enemies make a mistake first for you to punish, which if they're smart, they won't, so that's not an option against any team that has a brain cell, or the second option, your DPS has to initiate the dive, which does work. That is the one time that D.Va can feel right in 5v5, is when the DPS does the hard work of starting the dive, and the D.Va can rush in to defense matrix the DPS, keep them in there, sustain them a little bit longer, and provide extra cover and fire for them. That is when D.Va functions the best in 5v5, but even then, there's a critical problem with that. DPS players are not tank players, and 99% of the skill of tank is knowing which targets to engage on, when, at what timings, so you can keep track of what cooldowns are available, what things are on the table, so you know what the best place to attack is. And DPS players, while they don't have no knowledge of this, they're not really trained with that skill set. They're much more just pure mechanics. And in fact, the fact they can use mechanics to ignore strategic elements of the game sometimes and just win anyway, even if they're doing something stupid, just because they're good, you know, that literally kind of teaches them the wrong lessons. DPS players typically, obviously it's not impossible for this to not be the case, but DPS players typically have very good mechanics, but are quite literally, like, typically the worst players in the game at being strategic about which targets to engage off of. Because, again, it depends on the DPS. There are some DPS where this can be different, but just as a general rule, if you're playing DPS, it's the least important skill, like, you know, of the major skills that everyone uses, whereas on tank it's the most important. So if you force DPS players to be the initiators instead of the tank, it can work if they have that skill set. But if you're just playing with random DPS every day, chances are most of the DPS that you have on your team, one, don't even know that you want them to go in first because you're D.Va, they don't even understand that much, and two, even if they do understand that much, they probably aren't really good at that job, they want you to do it. So yeah, I know that's a relatively long spiel, I tried to make it quick, that's quicker than before honestly, it's just a very complicated topic. But because of all that, it means that D.Va is in this weird spot where I feel like she can't be balanced. We've got a lot of problems in Overwatch right now that just aren't balance problems anymore, they're design problems. They are, what this character does is stupid and doesn't make sense, and it doesn't matter how you tweak the numbers, you have to actually change the thing they fucking do. You can't fix it otherwise, you can't just tweak numbers until it works. Because what we're seeing right here is the tweaking numbers until it works with D.Va. We tweaked the numbers until D.Va finally worked, And the moment D.Va worked, she was broken, because the only way they could make D.Va work was to crank her stats so stupidly high that she didn't even really have to do a job anymore. She could just W into people and expect to kill them, which is kind of not a good thing. You kind of don't want that. You kind of don't. That kind of reduces the skill expression of D.Va, even though it also increases the effectiveness of D.Va. Because, I mean, a lot of the skill of D.Va is figuring out how to be the most valuable when you can't really initiate a dive on your own unless you're punishing a mistake that already exists on the enemy team. And yet that skill becomes irrelevant if you don't even need to have that skill. You can just W directly into the enemies and probably live anyway because your health bar is that huge and your defense matrix lasts a year, you know? And so that's the problem we've run into here, is like, we're on this like precipice where it's like, okay, so either D.Va is a big enough meatball that she can just charge directly into the enemy team, expect to not die, and expect to get kills off of it, in which case she's a brain-dead character, or we keep D.Va the skill-expressive character she really is, but she literally doesn't function in the format of the game we've made unless we severely rework her, which we still haven't done, you know? And it's like, yeah, D.Va's a big problem. So either way, this is a good change. They definitely should have reduced defense matrix. But I'd like to say, everything I just said, the reason I brought it up, it's interesting they mentioned that defense matrix at 3.5 seconds, even though everyone agreed it was ludicrously overpowered, didn't even make her that strong. It mostly just pissed people off. I think that really says something about what I've just said. That, like, it doesn't matter how high her stats are, almost, because she literally physically cannot fulfill her function as a tank because of the fucking format she's in, you know? That's not something you can fix by just giving her more defense matrix. That is an interesting thing to know. So yeah, I'm glad at least they reverted it, but, I mean, hopefully this is a wake-up call for them that, holy shit, if they're sticking with 5v5, they've got to rework D.Va already, and if not, then they've got to go to 66, and I'm saying that as someone who's not a fan of 66. I'm not a fan of 66, but at the end of the day, if you're not willing to make these characters work in 5v5, you got to do 66. Anyway. Orisa Buffs. Okay, I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. I am terrified of the whole micro-buffing Orisa until she becomes OP again for the 5 millionth time. We've done it so many times, and I hate that we're in the spiral again. But I also don't really know what I even want to say about this anymore, because I must admit, this specific buff, in a vacuum, feels okay. You know, I'm like, okay, the most skill-expressive part of Orisa is her kill potential. That's like the only part of Orisa that really takes much skill, because she often is firing at people from a far distance away when you're getting the maximum value off of her, which means you're predicting people's movements, which means you're actually engaging your brain rather than just running into a tank's face and going da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So increasing the impact damage on Energy Javelin, especially considering the increased health on all characters right now, I think that's pretty good. I think this is a good change. I think that it makes sense in a vacuum. And the only reason I do feel negatively about it is because I'm like, oh, they're doing it again, guys. They're micro-buffing Orisa, and she's going to be fine for another couple seasons, but they're going to keep doing it, and then eventually she's going to be broken again, and we're going to be like, how did that one happen? And it's like, I wonder, is it because we micro-buffed her 7 times in a row? And it's like, I'm so mixed on this. Technically, this change in a vacuum is fine. It's just knowing it's part of the broader picture of, oh, I know next patch they're going to buff her again, and buff her again, and buff her again. And it's like, oh, come on, man. Anyway, Zarya, I have to say, I'm usually a big Zarya hater, but I will say this Zarya buff is actually justified. And I can't believe I'm saying that, especially because the biggest kind of Zarya buff I'm usually against is damage buffs. Because Zarya already does more than enough damage. But actually, in this case, specifically to a right-click, that's fine. Zarya right-click needed help. In fact, one of my biggest problems with Zarya is that I think genuinely the only part of her kit that is actually pretty skill-expressive is right-clicks. But I also feel like right-clicks are the least impactful part of Zarya's kit. And I know what some people are going to say, it's like, oh, but the best Zaryas in the game, they say right-clicks are really, really important. What do you mean they're not? Well, it's like, They are important because they are the most skill-expressive part of your kit. So if you're in a Zarya mirror, basically the only way you can diff the enemy Zarya is by having good right-clicks. So in that way, they are important, but in terms of the flat power level, how much extra strength do you get out of Zarya by using right-clicks? It's like, okay, you maybe get 5% more ult charge before a team fight starts by poking at them with 0 charge right-clicks at the start of the fight. That's not nothing, maybe that wins you a game here or there, but it's not really a big, game changer. You can maybe kill some people 0.32 seconds earlier than you would if you just held beam on them. I don't like that right-clicks are the single most skill-expressive part of Zarya's kit, and yet they are the least impactful. So I'm all for damage buffs to right-click, because for those of you who weren't aware, the only times you should ever use right-click as Zarya is one of these 3 scenarios. 1, the enemies are too far away to beam. Most people know that one. 2, the enemy can be killed with beam, however, you're scared they're going to get away, and you want to burst kill them. So even though beam does more damage per second, it would be faster once they hit a certain threshold to simply kill them instantly with a single right-click, even though the DPS is lower, because the DPS is front-loaded in one big hit, you get the kill sooner. And the last point is if the enemies are so grouped up, you are going to hit multiple people with your right-clicks, at which point the DPS of right-clicks actually does surpass the DPS of beam. But even then, the splash damage gets lower, depending on how far away they are from the center, and the explosion size is quite small. So usually, even if you're getting 2 targets, it's not even worth it. You need to be getting like 3+ targets with your right-clicks at once in a tiny explosion when it's extremely slow and telegraphed to actually get more DPS out of right-clicks than left-clicks. And as well as that, you definitely got to be direct hitting at least one person. especially considering the extra skill requirement for landing these right clicks on top of all that, the fact that these 3 use cases are mostly pretty niche and narrow and don't have huge impact is kind of disappointing, considering, again, it's kind of the only part of Zarya's kit that takes skill. I mean, don't get me wrong, using Bubble Smart is a skill too, and does have a lot of impact, but it feels like, you know, saying using Bubble Smart is a skill feels like it's almost on the level of saying, well, Orisa's a skillful tank because you have to think about when to hit Fortify. It's like, yeah, it's a super impactful cooldown you hit to not die, and if you don't have it, you die, and on top of that, you can use it to play aggressively in situations where you couldn't otherwise, and that can have a lot of impact, and you do get really fucked if you use it badly, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty baseline level skill to be like, me know when to hit the button to not die, you know? And that's kind of the only skill that Zarya has if she doesn't have right clicks. So ultimately, as much of a Zarya hater as I am, and as much as I don't usually like seeing Zarya buffs, I actually think this is a very reasonable Zarya buff, and I'm glad to see it, actually. Moving on to the damage roll. Echo goes to 225 health. Obviously, Echo's just been stupid good recently. It's kind of a mystery they didn't do this at the same time they did it for Vara, but whatever, they did it. And I also think it's fair to put her at 225, you know, make her, you know, she fits the bill for a mobile enough character to deserve to be at 225. It's a good nerf to her, I like it. Hanzo going down to 225 is hilarious. I love how, like, okay, I know that, like, there's gonna be more later down the list, but I love how, like, for Hanzo players, it was like, please, Blizzard, we want to be able to one-shot again. And Blizzard just turns around and is like, okay, here you go. We're gonna start putting people to 225 health so that you can actually one-shot them. We'll start with Farah, the character who's in the fucking sky when you have a bow and arrow. Good luck hitting her. Okay, well, that's not exactly the one we would have liked. But surely the next patch, and then we read the next patch, it's like, okay, Echo, the other flying character, and Hanzo, you yourself, you just got nerfed. Have fun with that. Okay, so I'm not actually saying this is that I hate this change, I just think that's funny. You know, it's like, Hanzo players asks for one-shot. Blizzard, here, the flying characters can now be one-shot that you can't shoot anyway. Also, now you can be one-shot. Have fun. But in fairness, I'll give them this. They are correct. It does make the Hanzo one-on-ones more decisive. I'm sure that Hanzo mains will love that. And in fairness, I don't think it's that unreasonable to nerf Hanzo's health. I do like the rationale that it's like Widowmaker. Widowmaker deserves to have lower health because of how much of a threat she is from so far away. I like applying that same logic to Hanzo because it really is the same kind of deal. Though I will say, I think Hanzo is fine. People say he's shit right now, and he really isn't. He's fine. He's a great tank buster, even. But I will say, since he was only fine, I wouldn't say he was strong or anything, it does feel a bit weird just doing a straight-up nerf, like nothing else on the side. Nothing to compensate. Though I will admit, anything I could think to compensate or rebuff Hanzo would be pretty arbitrary. Like, all I could think would be maybe reducing the cooldown of Sonic Arrow a little bit, or giving him a faster ult charge, because his ultimate is not that impactful. But in fairness, both of those buffs are pretty arbitrary. It would mostly just exist to give the Hanzo something. So I admit that it is pretty tough to figure out something here, but yeah, that's at least what I think. As I say, Junkrat is being made more skill-based. Bounce shots are now going to be more, like, you know, viable because you keep more velocity after a bounce on your grenades, but your grenade hitboxes are hard after 2 bounces, so you can't get bullshit RNG shots as easily. Okay. Whew. So hopefully you've been noticing there's a bit of a pattern to this patch so far, where ultimately I've said nothing but good for the most part about most changes, and the only negatives I have to say is more, we have these big picture problems and you're not really addressing them. But even then, I have to give you credit, the changes you make here aren't bad. They are good changes, they just don't address the big picture, and that's what I want you to do. Now, Soujorn, this is one of the only ones that I will just say, this is just flat-out bad changes, just now. Well, okay. I'll read the developer comment first. After reducing the maximum damage of Railgun's secondary fire, we're continuing to look at the effectiveness of Sojourn's primary fire. These changes are to make it more accurate and better reward accuracy by increasing the energy gain from headshots. Okay, then. I haven't heard much of a consensus yet. I think they have overbuffed Soujorn. I think Soujorn is a demon again. Sojourn, I've only played like 1 or 2 games with her so far, but I haven't lost a game with either of those games, and it's been, both of those games, it felt like I was dominating, and I've already mentioned I think aim is my weakest suit in this game, so if a hero that's almost all aim, I feel like I'm dominating on, and I'm not dropping a game on him since this buff, I think that really says something about how good Sojourn is right now. I think she's insane. I think she's actually psychotically good right now. And I know that's like something we're sick of hearing, but I will say this. I do agree Sojourn needed some light, underline light buffs. I do think she needed some buffs. And the reason I say that is because the last rework they did to her, while it was good to make her so she doesn't do anywhere near as much one-shotting, she did feel a bit meh afterwards. But here's the direction I think they should have gone with Sojourn. You see, originally when Sojourn first dropped, she had an OP primary fire and an OP secondary fire. Her railgun could one-shot, and she could also get railgun charge super easily because her primary fire was deadly accurate. If I remember correctly, I think it literally had 0 spread at first. It was still a projectile, so you still had to worry about travel time, but so long as you could predict people's movements well with the travel time, you could basically get and farm as much charge as you liked on any target from a mile away, which made it super easy to get one-shots with your railgun. And do you want to know what the very first thing they did to try and nerf Sojourn was? Their very first idea? How about we just give her shit tons of spread on her primary fire so she can only shoot at close to medium range unless she wants to actually just spray and pray and miss all her shots, you know. And to be honest, I think this was a terrible idea. First of all, it didn't really fix the fundamental problem with the one-shot on the railgun, so there you go, that's one issue. But the other problem that I saw was also that now that you have to get closer to get more damage, don't you just farm tank? Because tank is the only target in the game that's a big enough target, like, to just spray from a distance and actually have all the shots hit, you know? If you're trying to shoot like an Ana who's like 50 meters away, even if you predict their movements, it doesn't matter if you've got all that spray. Meanwhile, if you want to shoot at the Roadhog 50 meters away, it doesn't matter that he's 50 meters away. He's a fucking Roadhog, he's huge. Your bullets are all going to hit, and you're going to get maximum charge off of them. So I know that Soujorn was already incentivized to focus tank, but I feel like adding the spread change only further focused Soujorn, like further incentivized Soujorn to just focus the tank and do nothing else to build up charge. And then on top of that, it also made it so it reduced the skill expression of Soujorn, because if you were more accurate, it only mattered on your railgun now, not on your primary fire. So your ability to get more opportunities to fire your railgun was like gimped, even if you were good at landing shots. Whether you were good or not, you now didn't get railguns unless you ran into the tank's face and went brrrr, which wasn't really a good change in my opinion. So, what I'm getting at is, I think they went the wrong way, and I think we need to go the other way now. We've now made it, we've realized, okay, railgun was a bit far, railgun was a mistake, we're reducing the damage of it severely, but now she's too weak. What do we do now? My answer? Why did you give her a spread in the first place? Just remove the spread again. Make it so she can just aim wherever she wants, and there's travel time, yes, but so long as she can predict people's movements, she can hit people from a mile away. With her primary fire, not her railgun. That means she can build railgun charge from a safe distance if she is accurate and good at predicting people's movements, meaning that she can still deal good damage without having to get into people's faces and without having to just focus tank all game. That is my solution to the problem they have with Soujorn. And I think that's a good solution. And considering I'm not suggesting any other buffs, I'm suggesting that railgun stays in its like extremely nerfed state. However, her primary fire now keeps the fire rate buff it's already gotten, and on top of that, stays in a straight line so you can like engage people from a distance. I think that's kind of the point of Soujorn anyway. The whole point of railgun is that you have this burst damage. It doesn't even one-shot anymore, so at this point, it's clear that the point of Soujorn is burst damage. It's essentially supposed to be when you need to kill someone quick before they can get away, you want Soujorn to be the one to do it. And I think that especially, you know, that's more valuable on Soujorn when she can fire at people from a distance and make sure she always has railgun charge if she's a good Soujorn that's good at landing her shots. I think that is really good and healthy for the game and very skill expressive and fair, and doesn't lead to people exploding out of nowhere because your railgun still doesn't one-shot. None of your tools can one-shot. Now let me explain why these changes are bad. The spread change is good, but it's not enough. I would get rid of all the spread, as I said. The degeneration rate change is not the worst, because it does mean you have more charge more often, which means more options for the Soujorn, but I just don't think it's really... It's not the especially because it's kind of punishing skill expression, because it's a skill on Soujorn to keep your railgun charge up, and now it's like, it feels like with every patch we're kind of closing the gap there, but like, okay, now you keep a minimum of 25 and it can't go below 25, and it's like, okay, now it goes literally more than twice as slower when it starts charging down. That's not great. But then on top of that, this is the big one. I actually think this one's getting overlooked a bit. Critical hits now grant 10 energy. Listen, I understand the theory here, I understand the thinking. It's like, okay, so when I land a critical hit, I should get more charge, because I mean I landed a headshot, I should get more charge for landing a headshot. More, like, harder shot equals more reward, right? Here's the problem with that. Already, Overwatch is a game where burst damage is terrifying, because this isn't just a pure shooter game, it's a shooter game that's also got, like, you know, MOBA, MMO, whatever, mechanics. Because it's like that, headshots are kind of a broken concept to have in a game like this. In some ways, it's almost psychotic that we have double damage headshots as like the standard for this game. And it was really necessary in Overwatch 2 that we started making tons of characters only do 1.5 times damage for a headshot. Like Soujorn, like Illari. I feel like there's one more I'm forgetting. Can't think of it off the top of my head. Well, anyway. But you get the point. Reduced headshot damage really was something important, at least on certain characters, for them to be possible. And it really is crazy that double damage, like, again, remember, BAP window is double damage. Think about how fast you melt when someone drops a BAP window in front of you. Headshots in this game is literally just, if you can aim good, you have permanent BAP window. Like, I know that sounds weird, but, like, that is literally how it works. The only reason it's anywhere near balanced is obviously because headshots are hard. But obviously, in theory, if someone just got really good at landing headshots all the time, headshots are kind of just busted. They are kind of just not fair. But of course, it's just weird, because, like, you know, fair from what perspective? From a shooter perspective, 100% fair. From a strategy game perspective, not fair at all. That's stupid busted, you know? Now, Soujorn already gets double damage for headshots in her primary fire. She only gets, like, 50% boost on the railgun instead of double. So, for a primary fire, she's still getting double damage for headshots. And now she's not just getting double damage, but double railgun charge. And in a way, that's almost quadruple damage when you think about how important Sojourn's railgun is to a game plan. Imagine adding a DPS to this game that does quadruple damage for headshots, and you kind of have an idea of what Sojourn's railgun would be like. To put in perspective, if you give quadruple headshot damage to Cass, he could one-shot most characters in the game. And he could, he's got 70 damage per shot, so 140, 280 for a headshot. He would do 280 damage per shot, no joke. So, no joke, he could, like, 3-tap most tanks in the game. Just bink, 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 dead. That is how insane quadruple damage headshots would be. Now think about the fact that's basically what Soujorn has now. Quadruple damage headshots. Because double damage plus double railgun charge when railgun makes up a substantial quantity of your damage in this game. Then remember that they also increased the fire rate of her primary fire in the last patch. So she is getting railgun now faster than ever before. She literally only needs to land 10 bullets to get to full charge. Then on top of that, remember that when you first bump into Soujorn, she probably won't have 0 charge. She'll probably have 25 at minimum, since it literally can't go below 25 unless she's just spawned in and not shot anything yet. So you only actually have to land 7 shots to get from 25 charge to 95, basically full charge. And then remember that's an instant 150 damage to the head, so if a Soujorn just comes around the corner, dead, dead, literally, like it may as well be a one-shot. It's technically not a one-shot, technically that was 8 shots, it was 7 little ding 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 ding, and then 1 little pum, But it's so quick, it basically may as well just be a one-shot, you know? They've basically kind of given Soujorn a pseudo one-shot back with this change. It's kind of too much. I hate to say it because I know the whole keeping things multiples of 5 is satisfying, but if they want to keep this change, they can't have it be double. Double is way too much. It would have to be like crits grant 7 energy instead of 5. And I know that's unsatisfying, but it's just you'd have to do it to make it balanced. And in fairness, shooting shields and deployables already only gives 1 charge per shot, so you already can see numbers that aren't multiples of 5 on the charge like readout. Also, of course, Overclock also can give it numbers that are not multiples of 5 as well. So yeah, oh, not to mention, I forgot, the Overclock buffs as well. Oh yeah, Soujorn is terrifying right now. The speed at which Soujorn can build up a full railgun is it's inhuman. It's actually just not okay. Sombra got some nice changes. Her health got reduced from 250 to 225, which is a bad thing in terms of like, oh no, they're nerfing a character that I think is pretty skill expressive and fun, but then they gave her some other stuff in return, which if anything is probably a net buff. Virus impact damage went from 25 to 35, and stealth speed boost went from 45% to 60%. I love these changes. In fact, the only thing I would say is I think they might have even gone too far with the virus change. The stealth change was well needed. I understand the logic that stealth used to be a cooldown before, and now it's permanent, so they reduced the speed boost it grants, but it just felt wrong. I don't like that Sombra is kind of like the sort of new Tracer in a way, post-rework. You know, if you need a character that's a more well-rounded version of Tracer, because sometimes Tracer can struggle to like get in if people just clump up and all that, and can't like really fight from a range, and while Sombra isn't built for like long-range fight, she is capable of a long-range fight, she has to take it. Obviously, I kind of see Sombra as kind of like the more well-rounded Tracer, like, you know, Tracer, but you're not fucked if you can't like do the dive thing, you know? Anyway, so seeing her kind of as a neo-Tracer, it felt weird that her stealth movement was so slow, you know? Especially because Translocator obviously has a bit of a long cooldown. Naturally, I'm not saying it needs to be shorter, like it makes sense in a kit, but just in terms of a pure speed perspective, Sombra is a dive character. I felt like she should be going a bit faster. So that's a great change, and I really feel it, and it feels good. The other change, though, the virus change, I think might have been a bit far, actually. You see, this might not sound that much. Oh, plus 10 damage on virus, who cares? But hang on a minute, it's not just plus 10 damage on virus. It's plus 20 on virus. Because virus, when you hack someone, you might remember the damage over time on virus is doubled in speed, but not doubled in damage. I don't remember if this changed with Season 9 and health changes, but at least when the rework first happened, the damage over time was 100 DPS. Sorry, 100 damage over 4 seconds, and hacking them didn't do any more damage. You still dealt 100 damage, it would just do the damage in 2 seconds rather than 4. However, that only applies to the damage over time. The impact damage, the instant 10 damage that it did on launch, did get doubled by hack. The only reason a lot of good Sombras stopped hacking people was because, obviously, trying to get a hack on someone for just plus 10 damage wasn't really a big deal. It was way more important if you were going to catch someone off guard to come out of invis and immediately virus them before they could react and dodge the like virus. It was way more important to make sure your virus didn't get dodged than to get 10 extra damage on it, maybe. You would only hack someone if they were the kind of target where hacking them was really valuable, either because you needed the burst damage or because the target was someone who had very scary abilities. But most targets in the game, you would just virus, you wouldn't bother hacking. Now, in fairness, it was a little bit too far the other direction, I think, then, to the point where hack started to feel like not a useless ability, but like depending on the enemy comp, sometimes it felt like there was just no point in having that like ability in your loadout. Certain comps, it just felt like there was no point in hacking them at all as Sombra. And obviously that's not good. And getting it to 25 damage, I think, was a nice middle point, where Sombra had good kill potential again, and on top of that, you now felt like there was a reason to hack people because the double damage went from 10 to 20 to 25 to 50, which is actually a pretty substantial jump. Going all the way from 25 to 35? Whew, that's a bit scary, actually. Imagine you're a 225 HP Juno, because Juno went to 225 HP as well, spoilers, I guess, and virus hits you, like Sombra comes out of invis, hacks you, you get hit by a virus, and you instantly go, before she even starts shooting you, from 225 health to 155. Then you take 100 damage over time in 2 seconds, taking you down to 55. Sombra literally has to do 55 damage worth of damage of just shots to you from her machine pistol to actually kill you. In fact, she doesn't even have to do that. If you're close enough to get meleeed, she literally just has to land 2 bullets and then melee you. She can literally just go hack, virus, tap, tap, melee, you know, which is, and obviously you wouldn't go tap, tap, you would go brrr, and only 2 of those multiple bullets you're firing would have to land, which is pretty insane. So yeah, the burst kill potential is honestly probably a bit much here. I think it was pretty good at 25, and I think the speed boost is already good enough. So this might actually be reverted. This is a little bit far in my opinion. But overall though, still very glad these changed overall. And ultimately there's just plus 10. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I do think that it can matter a lot, especially when it comes to supports. Like, when supports are your target, when backline is your target, when you're a dive character, small damage changes matter a lot. Whereas if you're like a rush character that just tanks all the hits down mid, maybe a small damage or healing buff doesn't help that much. But yeah, for a character like Sombra, small damage buffs do a lot. This could end up having a huge impact. I just think it's a little too far, you know? A little too far. Torbjorn. Okay, so this is the only other change, if I remember correctly, that I think is just outright bad. The developer comments kind of revealing. This shift in armor health for Torbjorn is to increase survivability against heroes which are most affected by armor's damage reduction, such as Tracer. So people were confused when they read this. I wasn't, because I already saw what they were doing with Torbjorn. They've given up on Torbjorn, and to be honest, this has been the case for a while. This isn't new, but I feel like people don't talk about it. So, here, I'm talking about it now. The developers long gave up on Torbjorn. The only reason that Torbjorn is still in the game is to be the screw Tracer button. That is Torbjorn's one and only purpose. When they buff Torbjorn, it is because Tracer is too good in their eyes. They never buff Torbjorn because Torbjorn needs buffs. They buff Torbjorn because Tracer's good. And we don't want Tracer to be good, so we'll buff Torbjorn. And when Torbjorn gets nerfed, it's because Torbjorn's doing too good a job of bullying Tracer, or because they cranked his numbers so high, he unironically, for a brief period, actually kind of becomes one of the better DPS in the game. Like that awkward period, was it Season 6, where he was like, had stupid high fire rate? Whatever. Which is a pretty rare occurrence. Most of the time, it's just Tracer. I think that's shitty. I think that's a terrible thing to have a character in this game that exists to do nothing more than be a Tracer counter. Well, Tracer and Genji, I guess, but more so Tracer. Because, of course, at least Genji has Deflect. Not that Deflect instantly solves Torb turret, but it definitely helps. Tracer obviously doesn't really have much to deal with Torb turret. So yeah. This change is quite literally like, we made a character that does nothing but counter Tracer. And they aren't very popular, and they don't do very good, because all they do is counter Tracer. To fix this problem, we're going to make them counter Tracer better. You see the problem? You see why I don't like this? You see, this is actually one of my main critiques of the game's current philosophy. I'm pretty sure, whether they don't want to admit it out loud, but I'm pretty sure the devs are just leaning into counterpicking at this point. I'm pretty sure they're DOOMER on the idea of fixing it. I'm pretty sure they don't think it can be fixed. And I'm pretty sure they're just leaning into it. I'm pretty sure they're going out of their way to create characters that exist to be counterpicks and nothing more. They literally don't have identities of their own. They don't contribute to the team in any specific way. They don't exist to help anyone. They only exist to take someone on the enemy team and make them miserable. And that's Torbjorn for Tracer. So, yep, here we are. This is how we bounce Torbjorn now. I say now. It's been like this for the past few years. Just kind of sad to see. Anyway, Illari. Illari lost some ammo. Listen, I agree that 16 bullets is too much, but do you think reducing this to 14 changes anything? I don't know, I think she should have 12. I very rarely use more than 12 bullets, but occasionally I do. And when I do think to myself, holy fuck, how is this character allowed to have this many shots? So, I don't know, I put it to 12. I think 14 is still a lot, man. I don't think that changes much. Most people reload before they hit that many bullets. And Captain Sun, as I say, this is just a change to make it so it doesn't get caught on walls and stuff like that, and apparently it applies to the heal beam too. Juno, okay. What is my Juno take? Still kind of undecided, I guess, a little bit. How do I put this? Okay, so I am kind of interested about the narrative, because when Juno first dropped, there was this, like, constant jumping around of the narrative, where the narrative at first was, oh my god, she's so shit, she dies so easy, and then the narrative became, wait, actually, she's just really good, and she just takes skill, and people just don't understand how to play this character, she's OP, actually. And I really didn't know what to think, because I agreed that she was probably one of the highest skill supports added to this game in a really, really long time, and I thought that was great. I do think she's amazingly designed. But I couldn't help but feel that maybe I'm just bad, but like she did still feel weak, even taking her skill expression into account. But it was really hard to say because that was during the time when matchmaking was so garbage. Like, I was just regularly getting like lobbies full of fucking like silver players, so it was kind of like, okay, I don't really have a frame of reference. I've not had a single game with a functioning team. I have no idea what this character looks like when people actually have their heads screwed on and actually play together as a team. So I really didn't know what to say, you know? It felt like she was really, really bad and she needed help, but I didn't know if it was just the games I was in. I still tried to give my take, I tried to think it through as much as I could, obviously in my previous Juno video, and of course now she's come out and she's received a bunch of changes. And I noticed that initially there was still this brief narrative kind of being continued for a bit of, oh, people think these nerfs killed her, but actually she's still really good, they're just not good at the game. And then it took like a day for it to crumble and everyone suddenly flipped to, oh, actually she's bad, and she shouldn't have been nerfed and she needs help. So, yeah. Now, in fairness, I say the narrative. This is like a general thing across the whole community, so there's not really specific names I can name, and of course that does mean it's a bit wishy-washy. But at the end of the day, I do feel like people have been very inconsistent on their take on Juno, and I somewhat think that's fine. I think it's a good sign, almost, that people can't make up their minds on Juno. It shows that there actually is things to discover about this character, that she isn't extremely one-dimensional and figured out on day one like characters like Malga were. And again, I really do think this is one of the hardest support characters I've added to the game in ages, and I do think, frankly, God, every day that passes, like, I'm becoming more and more like a betrayer of my own role. Like, I literally still technically have most playtime on support, but I'm not gonna lie, every day that passes, I feel like my contempt for, like, the archetype of what the average support main is goes up. And I am, like, almost fully on the, like, okay, yeah, support's fucking easy train at this point, you know? Even as a support player, just because so many shitty design choices are made in the name of making sure that support doesn't have a hard time, and it's like, come on, man, we don't need to be babied like this. Anyway, so I'm really glad to see a support that actually takes quite a lot of skill and doesn't hold your hand, and, you know, you actually do just have to perform on them. And don't get me wrong, you might be thinking, hey, aren't you now contradicting yourself? Because aren't you someone who called for buffs on this character? Didn't you think this character needed serious help? If they're just a difficult character and it's just a skill issue, why would that be a problem? Why are you complaining about, like, support being too easy? It sounds like you're contradicting yourself. But no, here's the point. I don't think the problem with Juno is that she doesn't have enough free value that makes sure she gets bailed out and just doesn't die when she deserves to. I don't think the problem with Juno is that she can't self-heal. I don't think the problem with Juno is that her health bar is too small. I think the problem with Juno is she is an all-in mobility support hero who has, frankly, kind of underwhelming mobility. I don't know if this is a hot take, but actually take a moment to think about this. Do you know what the other all-mobility support heroes in this game are? The other supports who can't heal themselves and have to survive through pure movement skill are? They are Mercy and Lucio. Now look at Juno. Can you sit here and tell me with a straight face that Juno is anywhere near as mobile as Lucio or Mercy? Not really. I mean, her dash has an 8-second cooldown. That's longer than Moira's Fade, and Moira can heal herself as well. both with lifesteal and her own heal orbs. She can actually be relatively tanky. Juno can't. Juno's like as weak as a piece of paper when she gets dove, and that's fine if she has movement, but she doesn't really have that much. As I say, her cooldown on her movement is longer than most supports' movements. Even Illari's outburst has a shorter cooldown than Juno's dash. Not to mention that Juno's dash, while it does last a while, doesn't go that much faster than just walking. Now, if you combine dash with the speed ring, that's pretty fast, but the speed ring is 1, mostly meant for your teammates, not just you, and 2, the speed boost literally lasts 2 seconds and is on a 14-second cooldown. So, you're telling me a character that can grant herself a minor speed boost for 2 seconds every 14 seconds, literally only 1/7 of the time she's available, and she can kind of dash to move a little bit faster than walking speed every now and then, every 8 seconds. You're telling me a character like that is supposed to stack up with the mobility of characters like Mercy and Lucio? Really? Now, in fairness, I'm not saying that Juno has to be exactly as fast as a Lucio or a Mercy. Probably a little bit slower, just because Juno has a lot more utility packed into her than a Mercy or a Lucio. Lucio's kind of all in on the speed, and Mercy is kind of like... Mercy's Mercy. I'm sorry, Mercy's a mess. You know, I was going to say all in on, like, the damage boost, but then there's also res, but then there's also, like, yeah. Let's just not get into that. Mercy is Mercy. You know, Juno, of course, obviously has a much more... Well, she can do some damage, even if she isn't the best damage healer in the game, and she can do decent healing from long range, and she can also do the lock-on thing, and she can also grant speed boost to other people, but as well as herself, and she can also get onto high ground with double jump, and you know, there's a lot of, like, you know, okay, she's pretty, like, a bit of everything. She's pretty well-rounded. So as a result, I do think that it's good for her to be slightly slower than Mercy and Lucy. Mercy and Lucy. So there's some good names there. No, but seriously. But either way, I just think she needs a bit more. I think she needs a bit more than this. I just think she needs to move around a bit faster. But that's the thing. My solution isn't just give her a bigger health bar. My solution isn't just make it so she never dies. My solution is give her the tools to run away. And if she doesn't manage to get away, that's because she doesn't have good movement mechanics and she deserves to die. And if she does manage to get away, then she has to express movement skill to do so, therefore it's fine. You know, it's not like, oh, that's so bullshit. The Juno managed to get away from me, even though she has longer cooldowns than I do. Wait, hang on a minute. Yeah, you know what I mean. So as I say, her health got reduced to 225. The big thing that really killed her in this patch is they took her fire rate and massively just nuked it, so her damage output and healing output is extremely underwhelming now. She already can't headshot, and she already has that devastating damage fall-off and healing fall-off, which did not get changed. So as a result, it feels like she mostly just tickles people. Now in fairness, a lot of people are acting like she can't do any damage anymore. You still get a lot of kills as Juno. Now in fairness, it's a little bit of a Moira situation where it's not necessarily because you're doing loads of damage, it's more so because you're doing little bits of damage to everyone, and when you're shooting someone, you're very rarely fighting them alone. There's usually someone else fighting them. So because you just follow people around and you help them kill enemies a lot, and because it's easy for you to do a little bit of damage to loads of targets, you end up getting a lot more kills than you really kind of earn on Juno, and the stats get inflated. Which might be why they thought they had to nerf her damage when they didn't really. They might have looked at the stats and saw loads of elims, and had a bit of a Moira situation where they're like, whoa, she's got loads of elims, her DPS must be way too high, and it's like, no, actually, it's just the way she's designed. She usually helps with kills that were already going to happen anyway. So she gets kills more easily, even though she's not contributing a lot to them, which inflates the numbers. But yeah, anyway, so either way, I do think, though, that you shouldn't underestimate the power of a character that is as mobile as Juno, as well-rounded as Juno, and also has as much range as Juno, even though she does have that unfortunate fall-off, almost always being able to tickle enemies from a distance. Now again, she's just tickling them, she's barely doing any damage. But she is doing damage from a safe distance, and even if someone tries to dive her, she does have mobility, so unless they really go all in, she can probably slip away. As a result, that means that you are not a very scary threat, but you're a threat that's very sticky. It's very hard to get rid of a Juno, and the Juno is always just there contributing damage and healing, even if it's incremental. This is why I think her healing and damage numbers were so high, even though her ability to duel felt so meh, because she just is always there. She's just kind of always watching, adding more damage and healing to the pile, even if she isn't doing it very fast. It's really hard to stop her if you play her well. So, and I feel like that is being somewhat underestimated right now, though I will say I still think this fire rate nerf was a bit far. Pulsar Torpedo's buff is nice, though, because I do think this ability felt extremely underwhelming. I heard people complaining about the fact they're buffing the zero skill part of a supports kit, and I would usually be behind a complaint like that, but I actually argue that Pulsar Torpedoes does take a decent amount of skill, because it's really bad to use this on like 1 or 2 targets. It's actually fucking garbage using this on 1 or 2 targets. It is genuinely worse than just holding primary fire, so you actually really need to be getting like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 targets at once with this to actually get value out of this cooldown, at which point I would argue that actually takes a decent amount of skill to get that many targets at once consistently with this cooldown, and to know when you want to use this cooldown, because sometimes you go for it, and if you're a bad player, you go for it, you lock onto 2 or 3 people, and then you realize, oh shit, I can't get another target. And then you have to think, wait, do I want to cancel this for the faster cooldown, or do I want to fire this off just because I'm already committed to this now? And the earlier you realize what you want to do, the better, because then that gives you more time to just start shooting and dealing damage and healing again. And I've seen a lot of bad Junos when they get lost and they have no idea what's going on. It's because they start doing a Pulsar Torpedoes and they have no idea if they want to cancel it or not. And so instead of spending time healing their team and just canceling it as fast as possible, instead they spend 5 whole seconds being like, and that whole time they're doing nothing, and they don't like realize they're not contributing because they're not sure. So I'd actually argue that Pulsar Torpedoes does take a decent amount of skill, not loads, but like a decent amount. I don't think it's a 0 skill ability, and I do think the damage on it was pitiful, so giving it plus 10 damage was nice. Hyper Ring, deploy range got increased, thank God. Yeah, it was pitifully short before. It's still pretty short now, but it's certainly a lot better. It feels way better. I would honestly prefer this be infinite range, but you press the ability button again to detonate it if you want to place it early. I think that would be better, but whatever, we can't have everything. Cooldown reduced from 16 to 14. I would go as far as 12, but sure, 14 seconds. It's an improvement. And I do like that they increased the speed of Orbital Ray. Even if I think in total this probably ends up being a nerf, because it makes it harder to stay in the Ray, I think it also increases the playmaking potential of it, where, like, you move forward as it goes, because before it went so slow, it just, like, you didn't even know it moved. So, yeah, that's a good change. Honestly, I'd go even faster. I would make it slightly bigger and make it go way faster, so you actually kind of have to chase it to stay in it, but it's a bigger AoE to compensate. I think that'd be nice, because it is a very tiny effect. This change is fucking hilarious. Despite the perception of how powerful Kiriko feels to play against, she's a hero that consistently underperforms when it comes to winning games. However, she is a highly evasive hero that makes a lot of sense to be in the 225 HP bracket. To help counterbalance the loss of health, we're smoothing out her damage dealing consistency by increasing the kunai's weapon's base damage and removing the enhanced critical multiplier. So this is hilarious because literally the whole point of Kiriko existing when she first was added was to be the guy who, like, lands triple damage headshots, and then it went down to 2.5 times, and now it's 2. You know when I said that double damage headshots are actually kind of unironically psychotic in a game like this, and we just accept it as normal because it's just standard in most shooters? You know, maybe it wasn't a great idea to try triple damage headshots. Maybe that was just a bad idea from day one. Maybe I called that right from day one as well. Okay, maybe not right from day one, but yeah, no, I knew this was coming for a long time. To be fair, I didn't think it would come this soon. I thought this would be one of those things where it take them years to bite the bullet. And I suppose technically it did. It took more than 1 year, which is years, I guess. But yeah, I thought it would be like 4, 5 years in the future they'd finally admit Kiriko was a mistake. But no, it only took us like 2 years, and here we are. Kiriko was a mistake. We're sorry, kunais are going back to being a normal weapon. As it should have been. So yeah, Benge. Double damage on headshots instead of double 0.5. Damage increase from 45 to 60. And the fire rate of the kunais has been slowed down. The reason for that is because when they reduced the headshot multiplier, they made you throw them faster. Because they reverted that change, they just made it so like it's just not even a triple damage thing. They've set it back to the normal throw speed that Kiriko's had for most of the game's life, of 0.55 second delay between shots. And they've increased the damage from 45 to 60. And to be clear, yes, this is a damage buff for Kiriko, because before a headshot was 112.5, now a headshot's going to be 120. And a body shot is obviously more, because obviously. So yeah, ultimately, I hate to say it, but this is probably like a net buff to Kiriko, in that she does more damage now. Although suppose she did lose the fight rate, damage might be about the same actually. Still, probably a net buff to Kiriko, but ultimately, I like this change, though. I like that we're finally admitting Kiriko's mistake. I like that we're finally throwing kunais in the bin. I like that we're making her more killable, because the main reason that she was so fucking despicable when she came out is that she had the smallest hitbox in the game. This was before they increased the hitbox of all bullets in the game, so she was way harder to hit. She had the most devilish 80-80 strafes in the game. Her fucking idle animation put her hand hitbox in front of her head hitbox, so if you got hooked by a Roadhog, you literally couldn't one-shot her, because she would just block the fucking gun with her hand. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, this character is psychotic and never should have been released the way she was. So yeah, you know, I'm all for making Kiriko easier to kill. Hell, she might even stop annoying me eventually. But yeah, terribly designed character, but at least we're doing something about it, I guess. Lifeweaver gets a mini-rework, and I'm not gonna lie, usually my blood runs cold whenever I see Lifeweaver in these patch notes, knowing that I love the idea behind this character, and that every single patch that has passed, they have only stabbed him in the back over and over and over, trying to quote-unquote fix him by giving non-stop free, brainless, skillless free value, non-stop, all the time, every patch, just more health, more healing, more health regeneration, more healing, more health, non-stop. That's all they can fucking do for this guy, and I hate it. And the reason why I hate it is because I genuinely believe that Lifeweaver on launch was a character that took too much skill for most people to understand him. I genuinely will die on that hill. People unironically played Lifeweaver like trash when he first came out, and they thought that that was the reason why he was bad. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Lifeweaver was good when he came out. He needed help, but he mostly just needed a way to proactively contribute to the team fight rather than fix mistakes only once the mistakes have already happened, you know? That's what he needed, and he's never getting it. So anyway, either way, this mini-rework, while it doesn't fix Lifeweaver, is certainly one of the best changes. This is the first time I've seen a patch for Lifeweaver and I've been like, oh my god, they actually did something good. Oh my god, they actually made a change that positively affected this character. So first of all, you now slowly get passive healing charge to your healing blossom while not using it at a reduced rate. This is an interesting change, but I think I like it. Probably didn't affect me that much because I've always played with the classic Lifeweaver control scheme where you actually do have to use the weapon swap, you know, instead of having like right click and left click, because I don't play with it, so you're going to have to remind me how it works, but I'm pretty sure most people play with the control scheme that got added later, where right click and left click are damage and heal, and the dash is jump. It's like a double jump thing, instead of it being its own cooldown. But I don't play like that. I play with the original control scheme just with some buttons rebound, and it's always felt the most comfortable to me that way. So for me, this change doesn't help a whole lot, because I already was kind of used to the old Lifeweaver, and this is mostly to help out people who think that he plays kind of clunky with the whole weapon swap. That being said, it's still nice to have, and it is going to help me still, just probably not a whole lot. No more reduced movement speed at full charge. Yes! Oh my god, this was a stupid idea from day one. I know it sounds like it might make sense. Oh yeah, you got a full like heal charge, so you should be punished by having like less like speed moving around. No, it's stupid. It's a terrible idea, because what it means is that because you die so quick when you get dived if you're not ready for it, you basically almost always, if you're actually suspicious that there's an enemy nearby and you might be in danger but you're not sure yet, you basically can't continue to hold a fully charged heal the second the slow kicks in. For me, I basically always cancel my fully charged heal unless I know I'm about to need to use it like a millisecond from now, if I don't know I'm going to need it, and I have a fully charged heal in my hand, and I get the slow, and I'm not sure if there might be like an enemy looking to dive me, I cancel my fucking fully charged heal and reload every single fucking time, because it's unironically worth it. It's genuinely the better way to play, because when I hold it, I get dived, and even if it's just a split second, that split second of reduced movement speed will then have to, oh wait, shit, let me cancel my charge, okay, now I can run away. No, you don't have time for that. You can't be doing that shit. So, yeah, this was a stupid thing to have in the game, and I'm glad that it's gone. Petal Platform got some great changes, actually. Holy shit, they finally listened. So, first of all, the duration before it runs out now only counts down while the platform is raised. That is a huge change, because the platform spends tons of time just sitting on the ground. So that is huge, and the duration has been increased from 10 to 12 seconds as well. So a platform can last almost forever now if you're not using it all the time. You can jump onto it and off of it constantly and get tons of use out of it. It could be down for a whole minute before it breaks if you're using it like sparingly and just to get up to high ground and then getting off of it instead of just camping on it. The platform now also resets if no one is standing on it for 2 seconds. That is amazing. It goes back to the ground. The amount of times, I'm sorry, okay. I know that I'm probably going to be calling out some of my own fucking viewers at this point, but I have to say it. If you're that fucking guy who sees the Lifeweaver place a petal, and you can't see anywhere it goes, it just seems to be in the middle of nowhere to you. It's like, what's going on with this petal? And then you walk onto it, and look at the Lifeweaver confused, like, why did you put this petal here? And then walk off. For the love of God, stop. To explain, Lifeweaver can store a petal, quote-unquote. The cooldown for his next petal starts the second he throws the first one. So he can throw one petal platform onto the ground, and keep it there, ready for when he's in trouble. And then, when he gets dove, instead of having to use his cooldown to place a petal platform, he can retreat and run to the petal platform he already pre-placed, and if they chase him to that platform, he can jump off of it and use a second platform to get back onto high ground where it's safe. So essentially, when you see a petal platform sitting on the ground that is clearly not meant for you, it clearly won't give you high ground, it's just there, that is Lifeweaver's lifeline. If you stand on that, you may kill your Lifeweaver. Because that is how your Lifeweaver doesn't die when he gets dove, is by using that platform, and you just wasted it. I know that when people do this, they don't get it, because no one knows like how the people play Lifeweaver, like, because no one plays Lifeweaver, but it's just like, oh my god, there's nothing more infuriating than having a whole game as Lifeweaver, where I'm never allowed to have a single petal platform pre-prepared, and I can never make any plays, because at every single fucking opportunity, my DPS is like, why'd you put a platform here? There's no high ground here, and it's like, that platform isn't for you. That platform's for me, so that I don't die. And you just used it to do nothing. Okay, anyway. And they also reduced the health of the platform from 400 to 300. Huge! Okay, I actually would even go further. I'd go 250. But I just want to point out, again, no one says this, but I really feel like I need to say this. Brick Shield is 250 HP. Why the fuck is Petal Platform 400 HP? No, serious question. Why is Petal Platform 400 HP? That is unironic tank levels of health. And I know what you're thinking. Nah, maybe in Overwatch 1, but in Overwatch 2, tank health is so high, it's like, 550 is a low health, like tank health, let alone 400. You might be right there, but here's the thing. Remember, you can headshot tanks. You can't headshot Petal Platform. Which means, effectively, this is less like a 400 HP platform and more like an 800 HP platform. And to be fair, more like 600. Call it a midpoint, more like 600. Which, in fairness, 600 is the amount of health that Roadhog had back in Overwatch 1. Obviously now he's got 750, but that's tanks in 5v5 for you, I guess, in the current state of the game. But either way, you get the point. The amount of tankiness, like, just thrown into Petal Platform is actually psychotic. And it's made it, like, so there's no actual counterplay to Petal Platform, which is stupid. And so I'm glad that they're finally nerfing down the health. They should have done this ages ago. Although, all I will say is, I would go further than 300 to say, I think 250. I think it should genuinely be something you have to worry about as Lifeweaver. Oh shit, they could break my platform at any moment. That should actually be a fear. That shouldn't be something that happens 1 in every 50 games. That should be something that happens maybe once a game, that you have to avoid your platform getting destroyed as Lifeweaver. Maybe even more than once a game. And then on top of that, we got another great change. Rejuvenating Dash finally got its healing nerfed. For the first time in Lifeweaver's entire history in this game, we actually nerfed Rejuvenating Dash, thank fucking god. Okay, I know no one talks about this ability, but again, I won't shut up about this until it stops. Rejuvenating Dash, on launch, only self-healed 10 HP. Before this patch, it self-healed 60. It's a 5-second cooldown. There is no requirement to get the self-heal. You just press the button. Which means that Lifeweaver, on top of being the highest HP support in the game, with shield health on top of that, and a 400 HP Brig Shield that also gives him high ground for free, was also a character with a cooldown that had 0 skill requirement that you could just mash to gain 12.5 HP a second for free, just for being a living, breathing human being with enough brain cells to hit the button on their keyboard. And it's like, that's probably not a good thing. That's probably not a good thing to have a character that gains that much free extra health for doing nothing. And again, I'm not saying this makes Lifeweaver OP, I'm saying this is just terrible design. Again, it's a design problem, not a balance problem. The problem with the Lifeweaver is he doesn't provide any reward for staying alive, at least not any substantial enough one. But I at least enjoyed that Lifeweaver used to take skill to stay alive, and now he doesn't. And he hasn't for a long, long time. Because we've still found the only way to change Lifeweaver is to make it so he never dies. But he still doesn't do shit. But yeah, all that said, I'm at least glad that they've nerfed the rejuvenating dash. I would go further. I would say 30. I would do 20, but of course the DPS passive exists now, so I don't know. I'll call it 30. Because then with DPS passive it's 24. That's reasonable. Moving on to Mercy, I'm not gonna lie, I don't have much to comment on this because I just haven't played Mercy like almost at all. I've played like probably a grand total of like 7 games of Mercy in the last half a year. And that's because, well, she used to be a support that I played a moderate amount of, and I even had a phase of really enjoying Mercy at the end of Overwatch 1 and actually playing her more than any other support. Listen, she's like the most popular support in the game, and she screws over almost every single other tank and support in the game when anyone on your team picks her. You can only, as someone who mostly plays tank and support, see so many Mercies in your games before you never want to see Mercy again for the rest of your life. And I've hit that point. I just never want to see Mercy on my screen ever again. And so, even though I kind of like playing Mercy, I don't even want to play Mercy, because I don't want to be that fucking guy. I know how fucking torturous it is to play with Mercy every single fucking game when you're a support or a tank main. And so I don't want to be that guy who isn't even a Mercy player, but just feels like, oh yeah, sure, I'll play Mercy today, and just ruins everyone else's day. So, yeah, I only really lock Mercy if it, like, really makes sense. If it's like, oh, we got a really fucking good Sojourn, and our tank doesn't really need heals, and, like, my support can take care of themselves, they're like Kiriko or something, it's like, okay, maybe now I'll lock Mercy, but other than that, I, like, never play Mercy anymore. So I actually can't really comment much on this. I know she's been dying really easy ever since Season 9, and I know that the health change, like, put a lot of people off, but in fairness, the heal buff is pretty substantial. It might only be 5 extra health per second, but that is, like, a nearly 10% buff to her healing, and you gotta remember that's about as much as the DPS passive does to tanks, and that still has a huge impact. Not to mention the damage boost buff. I honestly think that this might end up being a net neutral for Mercy, but I must admit I'm not really... I can't really speak at this point. Moira. I don't think this changes too much about Moira. Probably makes it slightly better for people who are good at Moira, but obviously that's kind of a oxymoron. Haha, dunking on Moira. I'm clever. Okay, but seriously, people who are actually Moira connoisseurs are probably going to take this as a slight buff, dying a little bit easier, but being able to kill a little bit faster. But I think for the average Moira, it's probably a net neutral. I think they probably both give and take a little bit. Leaving us with the final change, Lucio. Yep, that's a change, alright. I was very worried at first to see Lucio's health getting nerfed, because I'm like, oh my god, man, do you just see Lucio being good as a bad thing for the game? Because I feel like that's kind of the opposite. I feel like it's a good thing for the game when Lucio's good. But then I saw this below it. Primary fire damage increased from 18 to 22. Do you understand how much that is? Okay, you know when it was like hard Lucio meta post-Season 9? Remember when like Lucio was a must pick and he was stupid good? Do you know how much damage he dealt per shot back then? 20. This Lucio that we have in the game now might have 25 less health, but he also does more damage than the version of Lucio that became by far the most broken support in the game, and an insta-lock must pick in every single match for like high-level players. I'm just saying. Like, again, to put it in perspective, the nerf that like kicked Lucio down was a nerf from 20 to 18. That's a 10% reduction in damage. A 10% reduction in damage was enough to take Lucio from being, like, the fucking lord of the support role to, okay, he's just, like, a good pick now, but he's fine, you know, he's gonna milling, you know, it's not like Lucio's crazy good or anything. So then imagine what happens when he doesn't just get a 10% damage buff, he gets more like a 40% damage buff. Sorry, not 40%, that's a bit far. A 20% damage buff. That's pretty fucking huge. I will say, though, there's only one thing. I do like this change overall. I think it might be slightly overboard. I probably would have tried 21 or 20. But the dev comment confuses me. Lucio is one of the most mobile heroes and makes his allies faster as well. So we're moving him to the 225 HP hero category. Okay, that makes sense. His playstyle tends to get into closer ranges more often than other heroes in this category. Yeah, that makes sense. That's true. Because of the fact that his weapon is a projectile, which is much less likely to land its hits from a distance because of the travel time, but much more likely up close. Okay. So we're tuning up his primary fire damage output to increase his effectiveness at range before diving in. So this is the weird part. They've literally acknowledged, hey, yeah, Lucio usually, like, plays up close. And it's like, yeah, you're correct. That's usually where Lucio goes when he wants a kill. He gets right into the enemy's face and tries to hit them with his projectiles. You have correctly identified how people play Lucio. Okay, so we're going to damage buff him so he can do more damage at range. So you're thinking that what people will do with this is they'll play like Poxio. I don't know. They'll, like, sit from a distance as Lucio, firing shots that do significantly increased damage, but instead of getting up close where they know they can hit them, trying to lob them from a mile away and hoping they land. That only works when you're farming tank. And, by God, we've got enough characters in this game that farm tank. Don't make Lucio a tank farming character, for the love of God. So, like, you know, like, I don't want to play the devs play their own game card, but, like, does anyone on the dev team play Lucio? That's not how that works. Like, don't get me wrong, there's nothing better for you to do a lot of times, so sometimes you do a little bit of, like, oh, I'm going to poke from a distance, but, like, in terms of, like, getting kills on Lucio, you get in people's faces. That's how you do it. And I guess they say before diving in, so I guess, yeah, you do poke and then dive in. But, like, if you miss more shots when you're at a distance, and the shots do more damage, then, like, put 2 and 2 together, you're going to get more of a damage boost from this buff when you're up close than when you're far away, because you hit more shots up close. Because that's why you get up close. Because you hit more shots. Like, I don't think this is that complicated. I don't know what's going on with that dev comment, that's really weird. But, I mean, either way, I don't mind the change itself so much. What is the logic? All over the place. And to the quality of life, I won't get into many of these are mostly just like visual things, but yes. The main one that's actually kind of unironically a buff is the glide boost one, which means that it only kind of describes it vaguely here, but basically you know how glide boost could catch a ledge and get up to the top. Now it's more forgiving, so you can almost always, like I said before, you could like, I wouldn't rely on it, but it usually works. Now you can kind of rely on it. Usually, unless you're trying something stupid, you can almost always catch a ledge with glide boost. And as well as that, it can now go down as well as up when it's catching a ledge. So like if you get stuck on like the ceiling of a doorway, you can like nudge yourself under the doorway now as well. So it goes up and down, but you can't go up or down like while gliding normally. You have to be like catching a ledge to do it. So yeah. Anyway, that's Season 12 patch. Patch itself pretty good, honestly. It's just yeah, as I say, we got so many design issues piling up, and so many balance changes are being made. When the issues aren't balance issues, they're design issues, and you need to address the design issues because we're going to. Okay, I appreciate that fixing these design issues are big asks, and they take more dev time than balance changes. I do appreciate that, but I also want to know, I genuinely feel like at this point we're spending more like dev time working on balance changes that don't even like fix anything. They just push a problem down to the next week. I think we've spent so long avoiding the elephant in the room, and so long just trying to go one step at a time, addressing small like fry balance changes that just end up, when you introduce the first solution, it just creates 3 more problems which all need their own solutions. We've been running this gauntlet for so long at this point that I genuinely think that we are giving ourselves more work by not addressing the design problems in the first place than by just fucking addressing the design problems. I understand it's a bigger workload to do that, but at the end of the day, I genuinely think we've spent more time trying to band-aid fix these solutions that don't need band-aid fixes, and in the end, accomplishing nothing. We've honestly it probably was more work of doing that than it would have been to just fix the problem in the first place, you know? I think that's honestly how we've gotten where we are right now. You know, I look back and I think I was so hopeful about Overwatch 2 at the start, and I was enjoying it so much for the first year. What happened after the first year? Why did it go downhill so much? And I feel like almost, why did I even have faith in the first place? At the end of the day, I look back and I think, well, I had faith because I had good reason to believe that before Overwatch 1, the devs didn't fucking listen to us for shit. But I still think it was true what I was saying at the start of Overwatch 2. I still think, since Overwatch 2, the devs have been listening to us. I think the problem is, just because the devs have been listening to us doesn't mean they instantly know what the solution is because they've been listening to us. I think that we've gotten where we are right now because they do listen to us, but if we propose something that might be a big solution, that would do some great things to the game, but it's just a bit big, it's likely to be put on the back burner. Whereas if we have a complaint that's really easy, it's right there, it's just sitting on the table, they just have to flip a switch and change a couple numbers to change that. They listen to us complain about that, and they do it. They flip the switches, they change the numbers, and they fix that one little thing we were complaining about that wasn't really a big picture issue, but it was something we thought was frustrating. But again, I think that's actually kind of how we got where we are right now. That they are listening to us, but they only listen to us on the little things, not the big things. And it's not that they don't take into account what we say on the big things, but they always push it back. And I think that that's understandable, but I think at this point we've seen where that leads. We've seen if we always push back the big things, the big scary things we actually have to address. The reason why that doesn't work is because eventually you run out of little things to fix without creating new problems. I think the perfect example of this is what they did to tanks in Season 10. We did ask for help for the tank roll, and we got it, and it only made the tank roll worse. We did ask to burst ILS's tank, and they did do that by introducing the headshot reduction passive. And yet we hate that now, don't we? And I'm not saying that because the headshot reduction passive is great. I'm really mixed on it, a little bit more negative than positive. I do like that it is true, it really helped avoid burst dying as often. But on the other hand, man, as I said, almost all the changes in the Season 10 mid-season patch removed all the skillful counterplay to the tank-on-tank matchup, especially with the knockback reduction. And so, it's just frustrating that I actually do agree at this point. They are listening to us, but that's actually kind of how they've dug themselves this grave, is that they'll only listen to us on the things that are easy fixes, but if we only ever do easy fixes, we just ignore the big problems, and they get bigger and bigger, and the easy small fixes sprawl out into having their own problems because they interact with the big problem in a way that they are too scared to address, they're not going to touch it, until eventually it's like every new solution we can come up with to any problem with the game just has more problems. And it wasn't like that at the start, because at the start there were a lot of little annoyances which were just easy fixes, and there weren't a lot of big picture problems. Now, we have a lot of big picture problems, and we're still ignoring them. And now, whenever we try to do small little solutions, they interact with the big picture problems in such a disastrous, catastrophic way that, in the end, changes that should have done good for the game, changes where the developers were listening to us, led to more bad than good. I kind of think that's where we are right now. So yeah, does that mean I'm doomer on the game? Not necessarily. I guess I'm trying to focus on, I still think that they listen to us. What do we think we can do with that? Because there's the obvious answer, just tell them to focus on the big picture issues, but ultimately I don't think that's going to work. So, I hate to say it because I don't think it's the real solution, but the next thing along is kind of just a reset. Something so big it basically just flips the whole game on its head again, and it's not even like we're playing the same game anymore. And it will change things up so much that all the problems that we're dealing with right now won't exist anymore because it'll be an entirely new context. And well, time to address the elephant in the room. I hate to say it, but that's 6v6. If they refuse to address the big picture problems with 5v5, I still think that if they kept the golden age of 5v5 going, if they kept the first year of Overwatch 5v5 going, if they didn't power creep supports, if they didn't decide that all supports should get free value, if they didn't kill Lifeweaver as a character, if they didn't introduce tanks like Mauga into 5v5, if they actually reworked D.Va like she so clearly needed it, we would go back to not even needing to counterpick, not even wanting to counterpick because it would sabotage our own teams. We would go back to fast-paced, dive-focused gameplay where the main skill the supports have to demonstrate is mostly in their ability to stay alive. we would go back to some peak Overwatch. I mean, again, friendly reminder, beginning of Overwatch 2, the DPS meta was Genji Tracer. I mean, those are some of the most beloved DPS in the game. And again, back at the start of Overwatch 2, tank was the most fun role in the game, and it was the only time in Overwatch's history where it was the most popular role in the entire game. The only time in the entire 8-year-long history of Overwatch that tank was the most popular role in the game was the beginning of Overwatch 2. And that wasn't just the hype, because it stuck around for months. Tank truly was the most fun role in the game at the start of 5v5. And then we absolutely threw it in the dumpster. We said, we want C back in the game. We said, supports are dying too easy, let's give them free health bars. We said, okay, let's add Malga to the game now. We said, okay, let's buff Orisa, since clearly she needs the help. We did the Roadhog rework and removed all counterplay to Roadhog's abilities. All counterplay except anti-nade, of course, that is, so hope you like playing Ana Malga into Roadhog. And of course, we leaned into counterpicking instead of batting it back like we should have. But unfortunately, at this point, well, what I want to do is address these problems. I want to stop and take some time to realize, wow, these are really ruining the game right now. How about we do something about that? How about we work on characters being designed to be fundamental counters to each other so that counterpicking isn't an issue? How about we put more emphasis on teamwork so that you don't want to counterpick because it will destroy your own team's comp? I know it's not happening, though. And because I know it's not happening, I must admit, that's why I'm kind of like, I guess I'm on the 6v6 train now. But either way, there is a reset coming in the future, and hopefully it will do some good for the game. That's kind of my view on the game right now, though. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey, so this wasn't really part of the plan, but they already did a hotfix, and I maybe should have seen that one coming, so now this video is even longer. Congratulations. Okay, first of all, Tracer got nerfed. Okay, so I know before I thought that 5.5 damage was good for Tracer, and that 6 was a bad idea, but that was before the health change. I think with the Season 9 health changes, yeah, Tracer needs that 6 damage per shot on pulse pistols. How do I put this? I don't think this means Tracer's dead or anything, because I can't really put my finger on why, but Tracer did actually feel pretty good this season, even though I feel like she felt just okay last season. I don't really know why this season specifically she's feeling really good. I'm not sure what's up with that. I don't know if it's just loads of people playing Juno, and Juno being a bit of an easier target for her, or what. But either way, she has felt better, so I could kind of see, you know, okay, it kind of makes sense to nerf Tracer, but I don't know, man, this just, I feel like she's going to struggle to kill. I'm not really a big fan of this, especially because they already buffed Torbjorn. It's like, God. Anyway, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, but to be fair, I'm not going to go crazy about it, you know, not just yet, because in fairness, Tracer did feel pretty good. Illari has had their damage on their solar rifle reduced, so a shot now does 70 damage at maximum, 20 damage when uncharged, which by the way means that the headshot has gone from essentially like, it was like 75 plus 37.5, so that's 115, no, 105 plus 100, yeah, this is what I have to do. 113, I think, ish damage if you round it up. I assume it rounds up. And now that's a much more round number at 105. So yeah, I just realised, yeah, that's, I never really thought about it, but Illari hasn't been able to 2-tap ever since the health change, I suppose. Huh, yeah. Anyway, well, either way, I don't think this has an enormous impact, but I think it's a welcome nerf. How do I put this? I know I'm not really one to say Illari's OP, and I'm one to say he's often overrated, but that doesn't mean I'm not necessarily against this nerf. Because again, my whole shtick with her is like, she is really good if poke is good, and she is really bad if dive is good. It's that simple. And so I don't really think changes like this change that fact about her too much, but at least it might make her feel a little bit less oppressive when she is good, even though you can just pick certain characters to switch her off, which again seems to be a theme with the current state of the game. And probably the most notable changes, of course, were Juno. Juno essentially got the damage per shot on her melee blaster increased by 1, which might not sound like much, but considering how little it already did, that means that essentially her damage output has been given about a 17% boost, somewhere in that ballpark, which is not insubstantial, and I have played with it, and it definitely does feel better, but they mentioned that her healing output is unchanged, and I don't really see why they went out of their way to do that. I do think her healing needed help. Like, they seem to be worried about the fact that she got loads of healing in the trials, I guess, technically. But here's the thing, I'm actually kind of worried about this. Now that I've played Juno even more since I recorded the start of this video, I'm starting to think that Juno is a stat-forming character, kind of similar to Moira. I just feel like a lot of the times Juno either doesn't get much healing at all or gets loads of healing, but when she gets loads of healing, it's not because she's saving loads of people's lives, it's because she's just always shooting heals, even if she's not really healing very fast and she's not really saving anyone. She's just kind of providing incremental, gradual health regeneration to their tank or whatever. And if they get to sit back and do it from a safe distance, yeah, they can kind of just keep doing it for a really long time. So I feel like she's kind of a stat farmer, especially when you also take into account the fact that she breathes on someone very slightly with her gun, and then she gets elim credit, kind of like how Moira does with orbs and all that, and she gets loads of elims when she didn't really put in the work to get all those elims, you know? I think that Juno maybe is being misjudged by the developers, potentially, because she's a bit more of a stat farming character than they maybe realise. That being said, I will not complain about this. The glide boost cooldown has been reduced from 8 to 6 seconds. It should have been like this on launch, but I will not complain. That is a great change. That definitely gets Juno closer to actually feeling like the high mobility support she's supposed to be. That being said, a lot of people are still saying, even after these hotfixes, that Juno is shit. And I must admit, I'm coming around on this take. Now that I've had more games with Juno, and now that I've also looked back at the games I played with Juno, a lot of the games where it felt like Juno was doing a decent amount, and it felt like she was okay, were games where we kind of already had momentum, and I could just easily use my tools to keep pushing that momentum. But when it came to actually turning around a game that we were like losing to begin with, it did feel like Juno was just not the pick. And I have already had to swap off Juno more than a couple times because I really want to play them, but my god would I be throwing if I stayed on Juno. That being said, one, that's just kind of the state of the game right now. You just have to swap if you want to play this game. I mean, some of it wasn't even like Juno bad. Some of it was just, there is a Roadhog screwing over my entire team, and for whatever reason, my Ana can't land a single sleep dart or nade on them, so I guess I'm going Zen now. You know, that kind of thing. So either way, I hope she gets a little bit more work done to her. I've really got to say, I know I'm going hard on it, but they just need to remove the damage fall off, I think. I don't really think she can work otherwise. As I mentioned previously in my initial Juno video, I just think that she only makes sense as the alternative to Lucio, specifically in dive when paired with an Ana, but if she can't play from a safe distance, then she cannot fulfill that role. I still think it's really weird that she's so frail, and yet they seem to really want her to be a rush character, especially with her ultimates design. It's just a bit questionable. But either way, that's mostly it. Oh, one last thing. I forgot. The bug fix actually is kind of a balance thing. Apparently there was a bug where Juno's fall-off actually reached its maximum damage reduction before 50 meters, which is supposed to be the maximum range, like where it reaches like the least amount of damage. So they've now got it so that it is 50 meters. So technically that is a buff to her fall-off range, even though that was unintentional, though I imagine it probably won't have a big impact. With all that said, now for real, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.